Welcome back to Creepy Kitty Creations. It's been a while. I'm sorry I ended up taking a bit of an impromptu break. I've not been very lucky lately with illness, injury, so I'm sorry I've been gone for so long, but I have a fun video for you today. A while ago I read out an ebook and made a black-eyed boy, and for those of you who haven't seen the story, click the link above and you can hear the story on his video. But today we're going to be making his sister, and we're going to have another audiobook story, Space Invaders. Let's get started! So I got this little girl off AliExpress from the same place that I got her brother. The prep work is exactly the same as normal. First we're going to cut off all of her hair. It's really easy with these dolls because they don't reroot most of the head, they only do the hairline. And we're going to pop her head off, which is really easy with these dolls. It's really hard to pull the hair out through the neck hole, it's really small, so we're just going to cut her head open, which works out well because we're going to give her inset eyes just like her brother. So I'm going to make her head or her skull cap magnetic. So we'll need to cut it off anyway, so may as well do it now to get the hair out as well. So that should fit nicely like this. And these can just really be pulled out with your fingers, they're not glued in at all. And now we have a nice clean head. So next is the eyes. Her eyes are encapsulated, so we're going to do the same as what we did with her brother, and we're going to cut those out with a razor. What I like to do is just cut in around and just push them out from the outside. Really nice and easy. And do that with the other eye. Pop that sucker right out. This one was a bit harder. There we go. So now that's a lot of vinyl still there, so we're gonna just slowly, very slowly slice that down and get it flat so that the new eyes will fit nice in the sockets. And just pop the eyes back into test and see how they're sitting. Looking good. Pop those aside. And we can start making the magnetized head, which is actually, it's a little bit of a pain, but the end result is worth it. So for the main part of the top of the head, I want to use a big magnet, and then I'll have two little magnets along the side, just like what I've done here with this Monster High doll. So I'm going to take some wire and wrap it around the magnet, trying to get the same circumference so that the magnet should fit not really nice and snug in there with some super glue. This part's really fiddly. I actually end up using two magnets wedged between the wire because it works out more secure and is much easier than trying to fit one tiny little magnet. Just trim off the excess. Pop on some super glue so that the magnet doesn't come out. We want it nice. It helps when your super glue hasn't dried solid in the bottle. So use my backup. It's not great, but it'll do in a pinch. Get your super glue and pop it all around the magnet and the wire. Make sure that they're really nice and fused. So then we're going to take our magnets and draw an outline where we want them in the top of the head, like so. And we're going to use a Dremel to make an indent so that the magnets sit flush in the head. Takes a little practice, and be careful not to punch through to the other side. Although she's going to be wearing a wig, so that wouldn't be the end of the world, but still best avoided. And then, and this is why we Dremel the hole. I just super glued that big magnet in and it popped right off, so let's Dremel that as well. Pop some more super glue on there and drop it in. That will hold a lot better. Do the same with the little magnet on the side. Make sure they're nice and flat, and there we go. I took the face off with acetone off camera. I had to do it very carefully so that none of it got on the super glue, because acetone eats super glue. I should have done it earlier. So now we'll do her hair. I made some yarn wefts off camera and we'll be sticking that onto her wig cap. So I want her to have pigtails, nice cute 1920s style pigtails. So I'm doing her middle part and basically gluing the hair in the way that I want it styled, so she won't ever be able to have it loose, but that's okay. Stick some pins in there until it dries and put all yarn weft over top of that center part to hopefully hide any gaps when you flip, like so. Now her fringe is getting a bit annoying, so let's cut that now. Always cut longer than what you want so that it gives you plenty of room for shaving it down with a eyebrow shaver or going in with your scissors and doing some point cutting. You can always take more off, but you can't put it back on. Just separate her pigtails. Just in a ponytail, because we still need to put some Glad wrap over her head to get everything laying flat once I've finished the other side. I want to cover the glue where her fringe is, so I'm just taking some of what I cut off and popping that on top there. Waste not, want not. Just putting down some more fabric glue to get that stuck onto the head. It's going to get covered by the parting weft. Sorry, this is always a bit awkward to film. We want to squish that right so it's flush against the other weft so that we have a nice clean parting with no gaps in it. And I'm just going to place the other wefts over top now, just like I did with the other side. I think I waited about half an hour to an hour for all that to dry and taking out the pins. I'll put that in a pigtail as well. And let's trim, give that a wee trim. And I just broke my rule about not cutting too short. I had wanted to give her some micro bangs because that was quite the fashion in 1920s as well, but it looked really cute with these little bits by the side, so I ended up going with that. Put some Glad wrap over her head, fasten it with an elastic band and leave it overnight, and that should get everything nice and flat. So the next day I check and yep, it's all laying nice and flat, but we want to change her pigtails into braids. And do the same on the other side. I'm spraying it with a little bit of hairspray, laying it flat with a old toothbrush. Looking good. Putting some Glad wrap over it again just to set that style. And I'm so happy with how it came out. Looks so cute. So now we'll go into the body blushing. I've prepped this with 3 layers of Mr. Super Clear and just going in with some light red blushing. I like this kind of look and the blushing on joints. I just think it looks really sweet. So this is the same as her brother. And now I just seal that with another layer of Mr. Super Clear and we move on to the face up. So this has also been prepped with 3 layers of Mr. Super Clear. So I'm just going in with some very light blushing with some natural skin tones first, just to get some natural shading. And unlike her brother, I want her cheeks to be a little more pink and blushy. Other than that, the face up is very much the same as her brother. So I thought this time, even though it's not quite relevant to the character, I thought I might read out the other story that I had put in this anthology called Space Invaders. So I'll be reading that for you now and I hope you like it. It's actually inspired by true events. I won't tell you how now so that it doesn't spoil any of the story, but afterwards I will tell you about the true experience that inspired the story. So I'll be reading that for you now and I hope you like it. It's actually inspired by true events. I won't tell you how now so that it doesn't spoil any of the story, but afterwards I will tell you about the true experience that inspired the story. It all started with the faint sound of clicking, like someone tapping the roof of their mouth with their tongue. Amy rolled over, the freshly washed sheets crunching in the pillow cool and inviting. She thought, pulling the pillow over her head, only allowing enough space to steal a glance at the red glowing digits on her side table. 10 p.m. She took a pair of earplugs from her top drawer and squished them into her ears. Night shift tomorrow. Morning, love, Steve said, standing over a sizzling pan of fried eggs. Amy yawned so wide she thought her jaw would dislocate. Morning, Steve. He put her favourite mug in front of her, the one with the Space Invaders print. Steam billowed from the almost black brew. Oh, I think I'm in love, she said, inhaling half of the drink in one gulp. With me or the coffee? Steve laughed. How do you feel about polygamy? Steve leaned over the counter and gently pecked her cheek. Favourable. Amy loved his kisses. They were light and soft, like the soft fluttering of butterfly wings. Amy's phone lit up, vibrating dangerously close to the edge of the counter. Gotta go, she said as she chugged the last of her coffee. Have a good day. See you tomorrow. Steve curled his lip into an exaggerated pout and made whining noises like a puppy. Very funny. Earplugs are in my top drawer if you need them. I think we have a hedgehog infestation or something. They made clicking noises all night last night. Sounded like it was coming from the far side of the garden. Didn't you hear it? Steve had always been a heavy sleeper. I'm sure it's nothing. I'll have a look tonight before you get home. Steve slid his eggs from the pan and onto the plate. Do hedgehogs even make clicking noises? Steve cringed as he got into bed. It always felt arctic without Amy. Night shifts were a cruel form of torture. He rolled over, deeply inhaling the scent of her left on the pillow. Steve groaned and looked at the clock. Midnight. It really does sound like it's on the far side of the garden, he thought, stifling a yawn. I'll check it out tomorrow. Steve woke with a start. 3 a.m. That was definitely louder. Steve threw back the covers and tiptoed to the window, thankful for the plush carpet under his bare feet. He tore the curtains open, eyes darting from the garden lining their windowsill to the patio to the far garden. Nothing. Steve pressed his ear to the window, the chill of the glass numbing his skin. No clicking. The curtain eyelets screeched when Steve pulled them shut again and shambled back into bed. Steve whipped his head back to the window, his heart beating fast. Shadows stained the curtains, taller than the top of the architrave, with skeletal arms and unnaturally long fingers. Steve held his ears as the clicking increased in volume and frequency until it deafened him, piercing him like the high-pitched humming of static. Steve's head spun. He tasted iron, blood gushing from his nose. He stumbled to the window and pulled the curtains off their tracks. He could barely hear his own screams over the ear-splitting and inescapable clicking. Amy closed the entry door as quietly as possible, her keys jingling when she placed them in their home in the ceramic tray by the entry door. She threw her jacket over the couch along with her handbag. 4:30 a.m. A little late, she thought, knowing it wouldn't make much difference to a sleeping Steve. Her eyebrows furrowed at the sight of the patio light blaring and the glass sliding door being unlocked and half open. Steve? Amy cautiously went outside, hoping Steve was just having an early morning smoke. He was standing in the middle of the garden, staring up into the sky, his bare feet caked with mud and arms hanging limply at his side. Steve, Amy said, putting a hand on his shoulder and forcing his head down to look at her. What are you doing out here? Red staining under his nose suggested a nosebleed. Are you all right? He looked deathly pale and his eyes were dark, with not a single spark of life. Amy wiped the blood from his nose with her handkerchief. Let's get you back to bed. It must be freezing. She ushered him back inside, not caring about his muddy feet. She could always wash the sheets tomorrow. If you still don't feel right tomorrow, we'll go to the doctor, okay? She said, tucking him into bed before snuggling into her place on the right-hand side, turning the side lamp off and cloaking them in darkness. I love you, she said, kissing his hand. She could feel the weight of his arms around her, his usually warm hands glacial. He squeezed her tight, almost too tight, as she waited for his reply. But it wasn't his usual, I love you too. It wasn't even anything resembling words. And there we have it, the Space Invaders short story. So this was actually inspired by events that happened to my older sister and my mum. My older sister's happened first, and we live next to a golf course, and she was outside having a smoke, and she saw something running across the golf course. It was a sort of whitish grey, and it was like half the height of the trees, so it was really tall, really skinny, and it ran super fast. And she was so scared that she still doesn't go out and have a smoke there at night. She has it in the garage. But the creepiest part was I can't remember whether it was a few weeks later or a few months later, my mum has had one of those alarm clocks that you can set to the radio, and it would just randomly start making the radio static, like in the middle of the night for no reason when she wasn't even touching it or at all. And she had started hearing clicking noises outside in the garden, and we don't have really any animals in New Zealand that make that kind of sound, so it creeped her out a lot. So we ended up getting her a new alarm clock that didn't have any radio or anything in it, because it was starting to really creep her out. It was happening almost every night. So yeah, that's our inspired by true horror story. I have to say I really enjoyed doing the mouth for the black-eyed girl. It went a lot smoother than the black-eyed boy. His was slightly different. I ended up outlining his with some blackish blue, but I really liked how hers was softer. I kind of wish that I'd done the black-eyed boy's mouth this way, but I don't know, this is quite cool having them a little bit different. But yeah, this mouth was just so fun to draw. I'm going in with some black acrylics for the eyeliner. I know like they're kids, so they probably shouldn't be wearing eyeliner, but I really wanted it to be nice and dark around there to blend in with the eyes. So, unlike your brother, I did attempt drawing in some lower lashes. We're going to be having 3D ones as well, so I wasn't too put out when these didn't turn out the way I'd wanted. They weren't quite as floofy looking as I had hoped, but not half bad. So let's do a second coat of Mr. Super Clear, and I realised at this point that the inside of the head was filthy because of the open eye socket, so I just went in with some water and cleaned that up a bit, being careful not to get anything on the magnets, because I know water's not acetone, but I didn't really want to do anything to compromise the super glue. So tidy that up and then spray it with Mr. Super Clear. So now I'll just put on some Elmer's glue and give her some false lashes. They're a bit long, but I love them. And we just reinforce those from the inside with some more Elmer's glue. Probably a bit OTT, but I really don't want them to fall off. And there we go, she's got top lashes and bottom lashes. I think it's looking really cute. So slightly different from her brother, he's just got very short eyelashes. And now we'll do her clothes. So these are the clothes that came with her, but they don't really match her brother, so I'm going to coffee dye them. Try and make them more brown, a little bit more earthy and worn. So pop that in the coffee and leave that overnight, and then dunk it into some water that has a teaspoon of white vinegar. And then I just paint the collar with some brown fabric paint. This is trickier than I thought it was going to be, trying not to get it anywhere else. And it took about 3 coats to get the brown looking nice, but I think the result was worth it. I was going to do the same with her skirt, but the more I did it, the more horrible I thought it looked, so we're going to be making her a new skirt. So back to the top is back with the brown paint, going over with black paint for the ribbon, because the red just looked a little bit too red. I wanted her to look a bit darker, more sinister, so black ribbon and black buttons I think would suit. And I'm just going to tack the collar down because it doesn't want to sit right, and go over the white ribbon with black as well to match the bow. And I've sprayed her shoes with Mr. Super Clear, and I'm giving it a coat of black paint. Well, actually it took about 3 coats, and now I'm coating it in resin to give them that nice super glossy shine that a lot of Mary Janes had back in the day. So that's just 1 coat of UV resin lightly with a brush, and we'll put it in the curer. I made her some little socks off camera. I thought they look really cute. I don't often make socks, but I think I'll have to do it more often because these are adorable. So now for the skirt. I pre-hemmed this bit of brown fabric that I used the same fabric for the black-eyed boy's cap. And I'm just adding in some pleats and sewing along the top to set those pleats. I have to say, I mean, I love sewing, but these pleats are a pain. Getting them even is so hard. And I use my hair straightener as an iron because it's so small. But even then, this fabric did not want to press well at all. It's on the thicker side. Cotton probably would have been better. So I struggled for a while, and then I decided I just put little tacks along each pleat to hold it down. And now I can add the waistband along the top, like this. Fold it over, and then top stitch so that stays nice and flat. Pin it in place first, because this is quite chunky, and we'll top stitch along here. There we go, all nice and flat, top stitched. We'll put right good side to good side, and we want to sew a little way up the side just to close the skirt, but leave enough room so that she can still get in it. I also applied some domes off camera as a fastener. And now we can put her eyes in. I wish it was that easy. But they're looking good. I'm so happy with how she came out. I need to make more of these. She's just so cute and creepy. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to try and post more regularly, but it's very hard with chronic illness when you don't know when you're going to have a flare, so it will probably still be a little irregular. I hope you liked her and enjoyed the story. I'm hoping to do some more writing in the future. Enjoy it, and I really want to be getting some stories done. Here they are in all their glory, the black-eyed children, Eunice and Eucice. What?
Make us a stand.
Yeah, I will.